And there are open source models that I can run with an Umbrel or a Start9 or a mini PC or a Mac Mini or the computer I'm using, right? So that does give you the ability to have private LLM and private AI, which I think is going to become more and more important. And you're not feeding back your data into a system that is training off of that data. You're able to train your own agent off of your own data and keep that all private, which is one thing the digital world needs more of is the ability to be private.
Yeah.
And I think the open source way of this development is the only way that this works and takes the money out of the software companies. Like you mentioned, S&P 500 companies. I think Salesforce was hit huge, and it's because just all their stuff is proprietary, but it's all under threat by open source developers can destroy and give back the people. It's like this. It's like the uh unfortunately I'm using a communist term here, but like it's seizing the means of production. Like it is the power to the
Yeah.
people by being able to write code, use code, and not have this closed source system that you are underneath of and they are controlling you because of.
I want to get another perspective in here. I thought about that recently on in a podcast about closed source and open source. And the internet in general is open source. Like you have the TCP/IP protocol. You could transact like there's the same protocol for everyone. But then the popular apps in the internet, like Google, like Facebook and WhatsApp, like all the popular apps that we're using every day, like TikTok and Instagram, they're all closed sourced. And I was thinking about that. How will this shape up with Bitcoin? Because Bitcoin, as the internet, is also an open source protocol. Everyone can use it. But then I see how people use it. And yes, there are the four of us, and there's like a few in the chat now, and there's like a few people that really go hard in the self-custody, run their own node and all of that. But we are like a very small minority. we are not the everyday Bitcoiner. And most people have their Bitcoin in iBit, on an exchange, maybe even in Stretch, in other things. So like they don't actually have the real Bitcoin with their own keys and broadcasting the transaction with their own node. They use someone else's thing. Now, I have the feeling that this will be the future for Bitcoin, like that most people don't want to deal with self-custody and running their own node. I hope I'm wrong. I think I'm not. I don't know. And now with AI, it's also interesting because you can do all those like open source things, and like it's called OpenClaw and OpenAI, even though OpenAI is not that open anymore. But isn't that the same thing that we are already done with the internet, where it is open source, but in the end of the day, people mostly use the closed source, like they will use the ChatGPT thing. I mean, OpenAI just announced that they acquired, I mean, they cannot acquire OpenClaw, but they acquired like Peter Steinberger, the creator of the thing. So I just want to throw that back to Forrest of like how he thinks this like open source versus closed source thing works, because with the internet it's open source, but like the pop labs are all closed source.
Yeah, it's gonna ebb and flow like that. Like there's times where an open source application like OpenClaw becomes one of the most exciting things, and people start to build on it, use it, and it gains massive adoption really quickly. Still, in the grand scheme of things, it's relatively small compared to a lot of closed source technology we'll use, of course. But it's more so. It's kind of like with Bitcoin, where not everybody's going to take self-custody, but you have the ability to take self-custody that actually gives it part of its power, part of its revolutionary power. It is a bearer asset after all. It's kind of like that with open source. Open source technology is that checks and balance. If the closed source options become too expensive, too useless, too bloated, too crappy, you have that option of going to the open source alternative, which is going to be free. Might take a little bit more effort to set up or something if it's not developed as well. But it's going to be better. Like, and oftentimes, like these sort of closed source systems, they start to degrade because the experience becomes worse. It's like Chrome, the Chrome browser. Brave is starting to take over because it's an open source alternative that, I mean, the fiat minded can just say, hey, I don't have YouTube ads. Awesome. I'm downloading this browser. I'm going to use it instead. It's complete, but it's also giving them tons of privacy. It's open source, and it's moving them away from the Google ecosystem. And that model of paying for things on the internet through advertising, which is totally disruptive as well by not doing that, which is interesting. But yeah, so it's really about experience. And you can look at torrenting as well. Basically, torrenting only became popular because the experience was better, not because it was cheaper or free or anything like that. It was because you had to go to you basically had to pay so much to get cable. You couldn't get the shows you wanted. And so if you just learn to torrent, you could watch whatever you wanted and just download it all for free. Yes, you're doing something potentially illegal jurisdictionally, maybe, but the experience was way better. And then what came along was Netflix. Netflix stopped people from torrenting things, and Spotify stopped people from torrenting things. People were willing to pay for these things because the experience was even easier than torrenting. So it's really just about, like, there's a lot of people that are just not willing to like put in any effort. But if they do, the open source alternative there, and it's really that check and balance that starts to eat away, and there's going to be sort of these ebbs and flows of popular open source competitors. That's my theory, at least.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, Forrest. And I think that's where there's so many good things that are going to happen, and then it's going to be mixed with these bad things. Circling back to what I was saying earlier, like there's going to be stupid things that happen, the way people use AI, whatever. And you never know what's actually real and what's not at times, in the sense of like, what news headlines are you seeing? What's the one girl that was leading the AI at Meta safety thing, and all of her emails, it was deleting all of her emails, or it's, hey, the AI is like, trying to plot to kill the person. Like, I don't know which things are real, which things are not, but like, are there things like that will end up like happening to a degree? Yeah, it will. But then that's where humans, I don't know where I was talking about this before recently, but that's where I do believe in humans in general, because humans inherently our first instinct is to protect ourselves, and it's to stay alive. So like humans everywhere collectively, like there might be some things that really galvanize the country, or galvanize the continent, or galvanize the world, where it's like, oh shit, this is not good. And then you see people come together that normally wouldn't have come together. And then using the tools that we do have to then combat some of the tools that maybe have gone awry a little bit. So I do think Bitcoin, mixed with just the inherent nature of humans to try to stay alive themselves, are going to be battling that. And I do believe they will be nipping some of these things in the bud at the end of the day. Some of these technologies, like you said, it was like the Spotify and the torrenting and what happened there. Some of these things will naturally progress. And to your point as well, these things won't, like you think of like the second layer of Lightning, or like third layer, like federated mints, and like things like that. Like as things become easier, yeah, there probably won't be a ton of people that are like, oh, I'm self-custodying with my wallet, I've got my node setting up and blah blah blah. Yeah, it'll be like the person in the community, like a decentralized governance model, just like how at least America was founded, or maybe a lot of the West when people moved from Europe and came over. That's a lot of what it was. It was a lot of decentralized governance, and hey, we've got a local community, we're governing ourselves. And we've seen that throughout history, I guess, all over the world. But then naturally, you have these bigger conglomerate powers that come together, and they just naturally over time try to take more and more power. So we see this like throughout history, through all governments, on all continents, basically. But this is like this new frontier, and that's what's so hard, I think, for the average person to put even for us, like we're the average person, the average pleb, like we don't even know where this is just the start of the first inning, like we just dropped the puck in the hockey game. Like we have no idea like where this is about to head. And that's what's both very cool and very exciting at the same time. A lot of people are apprehensive and like, where is this going to go? But I do believe that it's the inherent goodness of people, or wanting to stay alive, will combat and beat back a lot of these things before it gets too crazy. Because people are right now they're worried, you're scared, you see these headlines, and people start taking action. You look at like Trump getting kicked off of Twitter 4 or 5 years ago. That was unthinkable in America. that was like, oh, your free speech is gone. Like for an American, that was like, whoa. Well, then what happened? Parler came out. Well, they got taken off the Apple Store. That was another thing. Like right after that, I was like, whoa, well, like what is happening? Well, then what do we have? Nostr, Elon buys Twitter. Like things will happen because dumb things happen. We will have good things come from that. And as a Bitcoiner, like a lot of us want to sit here a lot of times, I think, and I know I'm probably guiltiest of it. We know bad shit is coming, and I want to not have that happen. Like you want those things to not happen, but at the end of the day, like life is life, and like we are humans, and we got to touch the stove, and that's how we learn. So it's like, hey, how do we best protect from when we do touch the stove? How do we minimize that pain? I guess.
I love that. I was thinking about because Brandon, I think, said it in the end of the last week that we want to incorporate some of the comments, react to some of the things that are said in the comments, which is really hard because there's the flow of the conversation and then like the comments. But I think after now we're here 20-25 minutes already, I think we can maybe get some of the comments in. And I saw one which I think is which I think represents a lot of the people that currently are in Bitcoin, which is this one from Bar Quest. And he said, my mood swings with Bitcoin price. How do I stop being so emotionally affected by it? And he also later on sent one more saying, I'm still confident, but I want to handle the drawdowns better. And I just preface that before I give it to you guys with I think we all have it to a certain degree, and the longer you have it, the longer you are in Bitcoin, the less you have it. So I think the first thing to realize, it's kind of normal to feel that way. If you have a bunch of money in Bitcoin and you see your purchasing power go from X amount to half of X amount within 4 months or 5 months, what it's been, you would be weird if it doesn't do anything to you. if it doesn't phase you whatsoever and you have no feelings towards that, I think that would be weird. So you having some emotions when the asset that you love goes down 50%, I think it just shows that you're human and it's normal. But what do you guys have to say about handling drawdowns, especially now? I don't even know the price, probably something with 60,000.
It's very difficult to balance the level, the portfolio you have, what assets you hold, with the level of conviction you have, and that conviction can really be a lot more fragile than you might think. We're in a bull run, you understand Bitcoin, some basics of it, maybe even beyond that. Your conviction is way higher, and therefore you allocate way higher to it. And then your conviction will waver when it has a drawdown, which is, as Robin says, completely normal. It's completely normal to feel emotionally distraught from your, the purchasing power of your investment. There can be all sorts of crazy emotions. There could be like, oh, why didn't I think this was going to happen? Why did I buy it at this level instead of this level? You can blame yourself and all this, but part of it just is the experience of a Bitcoin holder. Like, this is not an asset. I mean, I'll talk to so many people that are older than maybe 50 in my family, and a lot of them, their apprehension of it is it's too volatile. And it is, because they're used to assets that don't move like Bitcoin. I think, all of us, we're kind of used to this volatility now, and it's normal for us. There's a lot of people that are investing in tech stocks that move like this as well, or other assets that they've been exposed to, and the volatility is just part of it. And for me, it all, once you experience it, it builds your conviction again. Once you see it return, it builds your conviction even more. And then the entire time you realize, well, I actually just could have looked at the amount of Bitcoin I had, not the dollar value of it. And that's that saying that seems very meaningless to many people, which is 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. It's kind of a line that people will just, okay, whatever, that doesn't mean anything. But it actually means a lot. It means that is the denominator. The Bitcoin is the denominator. And it's really just about, do you have more Bitcoin over time? because the dollar price, if you're not actively spending your Bitcoin, if you're not fully living on a Bitcoin standard, it really doesn't really matter day to day what your Bitcoin is worth. And in fact, the only reason you should be looking at charts is if you are trying to think of buying a dip and things like that. If you're thinking about timing it within the short term, which is mostly a fool's errand, but go to it if you want. And then it's just about how many sats you have. Do I have more sats this week than last week? That's really the number that's important. But it's one thing to say that; it's another thing to feel that, which is something you build over time through conviction.
Yeah, that's the main thing for me, is that it just takes time. It's not something you can watch a 2-hour video on or listen to this interview and say, oh, I'm going to be more convicted about Bitcoin. I'm not going to feel as much next time we have a 50% drop. You just got to go through it, because when you go through it, you learn different things along the way. Like this time last year, I was much heavier allocated to Bitcoin than I am a year later. In terms of, I had hardly any cash this time last year. But after going through that whole thing, I realized that, hey, it's probably a good idea to have some cash, not only just to help cover my short-term obligations and not have to sell my Bitcoin, but also when it drops by 50%, you have some dry powder you can put into Bitcoin and get more sats for that same amount of dollars. So I think that's a big one, is just you can't learn it by through somebody else's experience. It's something that you have to go through yourself. And I love what Forrest said there in terms of the balance of sats, because that's what everybody should be looking at, right? I asked this question before. I said, if you looked at your bank balance every morning, your bank account, and that number just went up every day, you'd be pretty happy about that. Nobody does, because you get paid by your employer, you get paid by a customer, and it goes up, but then you got to pay all your bills and it goes down. Whereas Bitcoin, if you looked at your Sparrow wallet and your Bitcoin balance every day and you just saw that number going up, that's a pretty good feeling, I would say. Like if you just looked at Bitcoin as it is, not as an investment, but an actual money that you can use in the future, that's huge. So that's what really helped me get through it, is I saw my sats going up and up and up, and even accelerated, because I could trade the same amount of fiat dollars for the same, or for more sats, those units that I'm trying to collect more of every day. And so that's what's kind of got me through it.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where we don't know when these things are going to happen. So to what you guys are saying, like, having some cash, like, doing what you need to do. I say a lot, like, you have some, food storage, you have some water, you have some firearms if you can do that, have some cash, whatever it is, right? Like you got to stay protected for what's coming, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a blackout of the grid. Who knows what's coming? We've seen all these things. We've read all these things for years. We have no idea what's happening. It's just a good thing to do for life, being, somewhat diversified in that sense. Just the ephemeral part, just the survival part, having community. That's why, community with Bitcoiners, people that are like-minded, is so important. It's the number one thing in a survival situation is community, actually, because you don't know what you're going to be short on. But at the end of the day, we know which direction things are going. If Bitcoin can, it's only two things. If Bitcoin can credibly enforce its fixed supply and stay decentralized and secure, and governments are going to continue printing money because it's a debt-based system, there's only one direction we're going, folks. We don't know when that iceberg flipping moment, the suddenly moment's going to happen, whether it's in the next year, or whether it's in the next 10 years or whatever, but it's coming, and that's all you need to know. So you need to, and that's what we do here every day. We're all trying to figure out, like, okay, when do we think it's happening? In a sense, it's like, your conviction, hodling, to get your education, stay convicted, get reconvicted again when you have these drawdowns, whatever it might be. But we know what direction things are going. You know, the US dollar is the Titanic. The world reserve currency is going down. It's already struck the iceberg. Voting for a new captain is like voting for a new president. Trying to shuffle deck chairs is like trying to get in all these other asset classes, and like, oh, I'm going to go be, I was real estate investor guy for 10 years. I was gold and silver guy 15 years ago. I've been down those roads. And you get to Bitcoin, you see the wizard behind the curtain, and only in Bitcoin, in a protocol outside of that whole system, can you actually, the lifeboat, start backing up and realizing, oh my gosh, the ship is going down. I was told my whole life that ship can't go down. I'm reading the newspaper clippings. Everyone's told me how it can't. And then all of a sudden you start backing away. Only in Bitcoin can you see. You can't see it from altcoins. You can't see it from, you just can't, because Bitcoin is a 4-letter word, but Bitcoin is about learning all the workings of the system. Bitcoin's not about, oh, I've got Bitcoin, so now I'm going to be rich someday. That's what people might think. That's what many of us maybe thought when we got in. And then you start moving away. You're like, yeah, I got on the Bitcoin or the life raft, and you start moving away. And you're like, oh shit, no, I'm really leaving the system that's sinking. That's the aha moment. So at the end of the day, it's like you guys all said, It's just getting what you need to be comfortable to ride out this process.
The first thing that every Bitcoiner does, and the most important activity that every Bitcoiner keeps on doing, is buying Bitcoin. And I personally use Relay to buy and sometimes also spend or sell my Bitcoin. And there are two main reasons why I do so. The first one is it's Bitcoin only. They do not do any shit coins. They do not do any cryptos, any stocks, or anything else. This is a tool, an app that is fully focused only and solely on Bitcoin. The second one is self-custody. They give you the keys to your Bitcoin the moment you buy them. You never give them the control over your Bitcoin, and you don't have to trust them because you can verify that you and only you have the keys to your Bitcoin. There's no third-party risk. There's no freezing of your assets. There's no rug pulling. There's nothing of that. Download Relay, the app, on your phone, or go to relay.app on your browser and use code Robin to save fees and get cheaper Bitcoin. I want to tell you about something very special to me. It's called MicroSeed. If you hold your Bitcoin in self-custody, and you should, you know how critical it is to secure your seed phrase. You should not have them on paper. You should not have them on anything else than titanium. With MicroSeed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because MicroSeed is not selling the washer. MicroSeed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today, and you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io.